Hey guys, welcome back to Mac Music Review. In this episode, we're going back to the traditional format and looking at the album Beneath the Skin by Of Monsters and Men. This is the album cover. Beneath the Skin is Of Monsters and Men's sophomore album, and you know, it was kind of the band getting into a groove. Their debut album was bold, big, expressive, and extremely successful, which was really odd. Little Talks was a huge hit. I also have heard Mountain Sound in a lot of places. Both of those songs are really huge. Dirty Paws was featured in a movie, my favorite movie of all time, Secret Life of Walter Mitty, But the band was just kind of really popular and successful with their debut, which was really surprising, given their kind of unique sound, where it's kind of like of Mumford & Sons in terms of the big ambitiousness of it. Arcade Fire, Mumford & Sons kind of vibe. But the lyrical content was very bold and talking about like nature and all these other interesting ideas and mental illness on one of the songs, and all kinds of interesting topics and themes. And you know, it was like an Icelandic group and they don't really know English. They sing the songs in English and it sounds good in their songs, but the band doesn't actually speak a lot of English, which is really interesting. They released this album and the reception from critics was pretty lukewarm. The critical reception to their debut wasn't super strong, but this one, it was even less so. People were just not really impressed with it. And I think that's kind of sad, because I think I kind of bought into like the hype when I originally reviewed it. I was like, oh yeah, it's just not that impressive. But I listened to this last night and it's surprisingly great. Like surprisingly great. Like, and just in terms of, it's not like an amazing album, but just in terms of consistently good, unique songs, like not necessarily unique for the band, but unique compared to other music. The songs are really well constructed. The music throughout this project is really good. The vocals throughout the project are good. The lyrical content is pretty good throughout. It's not as vibrant and expressive and, you know, provocative and thought-provoking as the lyrical content, you know, mentally stimulating as the lyrical content on their debut. It's the images are not as bright or as vivid, but it's still strong, and the lyrical content is a little bit in a darker direction, so it makes sense that it's not as, the imagery isn't as vivid, because it tries to, you know, settle into a darker lane. And it's just all around a pretty solid project. There isn't really a bad song on the track list. There are ones that don't feel as good as some of the other ones, like Organs and Slow Life. Some of these slower songs take me out of it a little bit. The lyrical content of Wolves Without Teeth seemed a little more surface level at first, but the music of that song and the lyrical imagery is actually pretty solid. And, you know, it's actually a pretty good song. I remember originally not liking that one much at all, but, you know, the more I've come back to it, the more I've enjoyed it. But, you know, there's some really great songs on here. Like, We Sink has a really strong hook and development. Crystals and Human are both very solid songs. Empire is a really great track, like, really underrated Of Monsters and Men song. Like, just a really solid construction and hook and, you know, the way it progressed. I'm saying the same thing over and over again. But it's a little bit hard to talk about the individual tracks on the album, because the album, this is one of those albums where the songs do sort of bleed together. They don't feel, unlike the first album, each individual track is not extremely distinctive from the other, because once again, this is an album where Of Monsters and Men have found themselves in their lane, which is a lane they set with their debut, and they're just kind of comfortably doing the same thing without a lot of experimentation. Other than, once again, there's some slower songs, which don't work as well, in my opinion, as the more, you know, the more musically adventurous ones. And Thousand Eyes is an exception in terms of the unique song structure, where it's the song where it builds and builds and builds and builds, and then it just kind of peters out near the end. But, you know, it's an interesting song from a song structure perspective, and one of the most risky songs on the album. I really don't have much else to say about this album. Really solid music, really solid vocals, really solid lyrics, but once again, it feels like Of Monsters and Men has found a comfortable lane, and they're mostly just staying in that lane, except with the exception of the album being a little bit darker and having a little bit of a darker twinge to it. But overall, it's less bold, it's less striking than the debut, and just less, and you know, it's just not as good as the debut. But still, very solid album. It's a solid, alternative album that may not be great compared to, you know, the best of Monsters and Men album, their debut. It's still really good compared to other alternative music and other just music in general, and just on a purely musical, lyrical, vocal level, it's a really solid album, and I'm gonna give it a 3.5 star rating out of 5. What are some of your favorite tracks? Seriously, guys, Empire, that's a great track. That's a really good song. There's not really any bad songs on here. Organs is a little bit it's not really my speed, especially compared to the rest of the album. And then Slow Life, you know, is a little on the long side, but, you know, it picks up near the end. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. Have a great rest of your day.